Het-Heru, Assalamu alaikum, Namaste, Haru Nefer. This is Kasankma Keperu with another video for you. And today I want to talk about why we are under mind control. And this is going to be, of course, a live broadcast. Now, before I go into that topic, I want you to hit the like button below. And if this is your first time to my channel, welcome. And also consider becoming a Patreon supporter. You can do so for as little as $1 or $5 per month, and you'll get access to exclusive videos that deal with the esoteric, mind control, divination, how to perform a ritual, all kinds of good stuff that are designed to and spiritually enhance your life and make your life a better quality of life. So let's talk about this whole idea of we're under mind control. Now, there are those who are in the conspiracy theory arena who claim they're aware of this, that they know that the government is controlling us and our thoughts and through radio frequencies and through all kinds of other mess. But let me break it down and give you just a better perspective on this whole idea, because I think, especially as I said before, those who are in these different enclaves, whether it be white nationalists, black nationalists, the conspiracy theory arena, New Age movement, their perspective on the subject matter is a bit skewed. And therefore, they don't have an understanding of the truth of the matter and what we're up against and what we're dealing with. And along with that, I hope to get to a point where you guys can call in and ask questions, which I think would be kind of cool to hear directly from my Magi's. If that is something you're interested in and you have a real question regarding the subject matter, okay? So let's talk about this. Now, the idea of when I say mind control, I am not specifically getting into the radio towers, the radio frequencies, the bombarding of the airwaves, or watching TV and seeing subliminal messages. Yes, those things do exist. We do have to account for that, but that is not specifically what I am dealing with here, or what I want to talk about here. More so, I want to take you back into the ancient way of life that our ancestors lived, which was an advanced way of life. Now, remember, I've always said that the timeline has been disrupted. We have been implanted with a false memory, kind of a memory amnesia of what happened to us as a species. We don't really understand our history. We only understand the history from the perspective of what has been given to us, which has been an absolute lie. Okay, so we are not we are not students of history. In other words, we're students of propaganda. So let's get that straight and clear, all right? What we need to strive to do is in order to get ourselves out of this matrix of mind control, we have to start taking a more spiritual approach. That doesn't mean that you need to be indoctrinated into another religion, but it means you have to elevate your vibration so that you can see the bigger picture and not see from the details. You understand what I'm saying? Because when you are polarizing left brain thinking, which is the dominant thinking of the planet, and in the story of Asar and Set, you can clearly see that Sebek, who is engaged in segregated thinking, meaning Sebek, that faculty, which is left brain, looks to separate things. It actually believes there is an outside world, and we know there is no outside world. Quantum mechanics tells us this, okay? So when you engage in seeing things as separate individual items, then what happens there is you see no connection. There's no Gestalt principle where everything is one. And therefore, you're susceptible to manipulation because the truth comes from a holistic perspective. And we understand that truth comes from Ma'at and Tehuti, Ma'at being the law, Tehuti being the measure of that law. And they're both dealing with the right brain, of course. So if we look back in history, we will understand that the thinking was different. Our thinking was integrated whole brain thinking. We didn't think primarily out the left brain. And we know that during the Conference of Nicaea in 325 AD with the Roman Emperor Constantine, he took the Bible, and one of the most important things he did is he moved us from a moon cult to a sun cult. What does that mean? The sun cult is a metaphor for the left brain. The moon is a metaphor for the right brain. Now, automatically, when you're thinking right brain, you're also thinking integrated brain thinking, because the right brain is congregative, it's inclusive. So it will work with the left brain. But however, the left brain will not work with the right brain. It seeks to separate, label, and define. So when we were predominantly a moon cult or right brain, he elevated the left brain, the sun cult. And what does that mean? That he gave more importance to Jesus than to Mary, because we held women in high esteem in ancient Kemet or ancient knowledge. And you look at across the planet, across all civilization of ancient times, they always held the women in high esteem. Okay, there was never a time where we were predominantly focused on the male aspect or the male principle. So think about that. Now, moving into this, this is exactly what I'm talking about when I allude to the idea of mind control. You see, the majority of the people on the planet are sick. They're schizophrenic. And I'm talking about everyone. Those individuals who are running around calling themselves woke don't know what the hell they're talking about. They're some of the worst candidates for this, because they actually believe that just because they can read or intake information and regurgitate or remember it by rote, that they now have an understanding of things in the universe, when they don't. It is only by the process of when you are in meditation, accessing the Akashic records, or merging the left and the right hemisphere of the brain, do you become an elevated being. Remember, in the story of Asar and Set, Heru could not beat Set, which Set is a symbol of your emotional and animal instincts, until he saw the great sage Tehuti, and Tehuti is the right brain. So you're not going to be able to solve the problems that are vexing this world simply by reading some books and thinking that you now have the solution. It doesn't work that way. You've got to elevate the way you're thinking to a higher vibrational frequency, to 5D in principle and in theory, because your thinking is primarily in 3D. 3D is duality. And that's what's got us caught up in things, we're caught up in duality, all right? And it is this duality that has set the stage for conflicts on the planets, wars, sexism, racism. It has destroyed the planet, the planet ecology, so, or ecosystem. So we see, when I'm saying mind control, I'm not specifically talking about the dissemination of a certain perspective on life that the government is putting out. I'm not talking about that. That's easily remedied. What I am talking about is that we have moved from an ancient way of thinking that allowed us to build high culture civilizations that we have not even come close to in modern day technology. Do you understand? We still cannot duplicate what they did with the pyramids. We still have not reached the epitome or zenith of society or of a nation as did ancient Atlantis, which is a very advanced high culture civilization. When I mean high culture, I'm talking about moral aspect too. We are morally corrupt because we're primarily focused on left brain thinking. So we think that what passes for intelligence is cleverness, is cunning. And those are attributes of Sebek, and Sebek is what? Left brain thinking. We don't understand that we have to take into account morality. All right. And a case in point, let me just give you an understanding of just higher level thinking. When you look at people and you think that they're outside of you, when they're not, they're avatars that are created by you to have an experience for Neter, or God or source. But you believe that they're outside of you. You don't realize that you have created these individuals as avatars to have an experience with. You're interacting with a holographic projection of them. They are not real. You see, before you came to Gaia, before you came to Earth, you existed in the ether, and you stood before Tehuti, and you stood before all of your friends and family members that you are having interactions with today. And you said to them, I need to have an experience. Tehuti tells me that that experience has to revolve around a theme or destiny. And that could be, unrequited love. So you go to these friends and family members surrounded by, and you say, you will be my mate, my girlfriend. And you will play the role of my girlfriend, and you will victimize me. You will lie to me. You will scheme on me. You will take money from me. You'll carry my life through hell. Will you do this for me so that I may learn the true essence of love? And out of love, that person says, yes, I will be the antagonist in your story, because I love and care for you. I will play that role in this grand play or movie that you will create so you can have an experience. Then you go to another person and say, you will be my father. I want you to be my father. I want you to physically abuse me. Will you agree to take on that role? And then that person says, out of love for you and for nectar or source, so the source can have an experience, I will play the role of your father and physically abuse you, so you may learn love, to love me even though I physically abused you. And then what happens, you're reincarnated on this planet, and then you have the experience with your father, you have the experience with your girlfriend or boyfriend, and the experience is foul, it is negative. But see, you label it as negative. You label it as foul and evil, not realizing that you made that agreement before coming to earth for them to play those roles, and out of love, they agreed to play those roles for you. So in essence, here we come with left brain thinking, the Western way of thinking that says those people are evil. You must now get revenge. Are they truly evil? Or out of love, have they done something to help you further your understanding of the universe and the spirituality? Do you see how when I'm talking about mind control, I'm talking about how we have been led down the wrong path by a certain type of thinking, which tells us, no, number one, that there are things that are outside. There are things that are actually bad, because now you have to start understanding that one is part of the whole, part and parcel of the whole. So you cannot look at one aspect of the whole and label it and define it as something. A good friend and sage to me once said, when I was in priesthood, I told him, I said, I think my life is just hell. He says, are you dead yet? I said, no, I'm not dead yet. He said, so your life is not over, so it's not hell. Because we have gotten into living in such a sick world that we're so apt to label things as evil, good, bad. Tahuti tells us nothing has a quality in and of itself. It is only our perspective that taints it and gives it a quality. And most often it's wrong. I have a car accident, okay? And then on my way to work, and then I think, oh my God, my car is total, I can't get to work, and I lose my job. And I say, what a horrific thing. Why am I having such bad luck? And it turns out my lawyer gets me a $2 million settlement. So really, was that thing bad? No, you were so quick to label it as bad. And then it flipped on you and became a very, it worked out for you in the end. So we have to stop with this labeling, defining things, because we don't know how things are going to work out in the end. Yes, the Illuminati exists. Yes, there is a control mechanism in place by the ruling elite, the oligarchy, but they're there to help us to grow spiritually and to come into the realization of our power, of our magic. So really, are they bad? No, because without them, we would never understand who we are as magicians. This is the mind control and the mental jujitsu that we go through in kidding ourselves and fooling ourselves. So let's get down to understanding things from a spiritual perspective and get rid of this Western mindset that has taught us things that are just so detrimental to our way of life. Look at the mental chatter that goes on within us. Look at the mental chatter that goes on within us. We are we'll sit there and do something and say, oh, I'm so dumb. Why did I do that? Look at the language that we're doing to program ourselves. I'm so dumb. That's a programming. You've now commanded your spirit to make you dumb. Or I could never do that. Those things never happen to me. You have commanded your spirit to place limitations upon your power as God man and God woman. So think about that. I just want you to keep that in mind. Language is very key and powerful. This is why when you get into the Kemetic languages, or most of the ancient languages, they were based in vibrations, frequencies. So, for example, my name is Kasak Keperu. When you said my name, you said it with a vibrational resonance that would evoke certain powers within me. They had to remove that totally. This is why we're talking English, because they had to remove those frequencies, those tones, which were really hakaus or mantras within the language itself. because by allowing us to do that and speak that way, we are manifesting different realities on the planet, you know? So I want you to think about that.
Powering off.
Just keep in mind that who you are is a spiritual being. Who you are is God man and God woman. And anything that describes you less than that is a departure from the reality of your existence. We're not humans. We're not black. We're not white. We're not male. We're not female. And to get caught up in that thinking is, again, you're commanding the spirit to place limitations upon you. This is why I say we have to get to a point in understanding that when we refer to God, we are referring to self, not to an outside entity, because you are God. You just forgot who you were and what you did in terms of creating all that there is. Because God places consciousness within you, the vehicle, to have an experience. And the only way to have an authentic experience is to forget your past lives. So that each incarnation is an authentic, real learning experience. But whoops, I forget, we're under that mental mind control, which teaches us that reincarnation is not real, okay? That teaches us that there's no life after death. That teaches us that the subconscious mind does not exist, and different realms and alternate states of consciousness do not exist. And this is why the Roman Emperor Constantine in 325 AD put in place the Christian religion to indoctrinate us, is that to be a watchdog for our thinking. Which is why some of the most manipulative people on the planet who've engaged in mind control are your Christian, or your Jews, or your Islamic people, your Muslim people, because they believe in left brain thinking. I shouldn't have said Jews, let me correct that, who practice certain types of Judaism, because Jews are not bad people. It is only those who indoctrinate themselves into a certain religions or way of thinking. Because no people are bad, all right? It is only their perspective and how they think and how they act, all right, that can be opposing what you want to do. But then again, as we spoke about before, if you are Osir, everything serves to further. So therefore, even your enemies serve a purpose to helping you to spiritually grow. This is why in the great story of Asar and Aset, one of the things that Tehuti was famous, his famous axiom, famous for doing, was making the two combatant brothers go home in peace. So even though Set did all of these so-called evil things, Heru did not kill him. Heru showed him mercy and found a place for him to operate in the larger scheme of things. So this is a really great spiritual lesson that tells you that even though you think something is outside of yourself, you think something is your enemy, it is not. It is part of you, who you are. Therefore, and if that person exists, then God created them for a reason. And it is not incumbent upon you to remove them from the planet. That is not your right to do so. This is why I take issue with people in certain movements who are quick to label, well, these people are our enemies. They have enslaved us, or they have done this. I'm saying, no, they're not your enemies. You know, I mean, we can go and talk about this on multiple levels. For one thing, we can talk about this on a spiritual level, where there's only one that exists in this realm, and that one is you, and you are creating the experience to have that experience to fulfill a destiny. So therefore, they are not outside of yourself. They are not your enemy. And then I can take it to another level and say, well, really, those individuals are manipulated because they are part of a matrix system, which is using them as taskmasters to fill an agenda. And I've always talked about this. When you look at racism and from a hierarchy, you have to understand that there are many of those who have engaged in racist acts are only indoctrinated into that by what we call as an ergivore or a pendulum, or going down a little bit before you get to that, the ruling oligarchy, who is manipulating them. So where does this come from, this manipulation, which takes us to another level of mind control, which is the Hegelian dialectic. The Hegelian dialectic, which gives us two opposing forces. This is why we're in a very sick people, because we have engaged in this form of thinking to where we always have to have a positive and a negative, and therefore we have to create strife. But realistically, when you see that one is part of the whole, then you say there's nothing really that opposes me. There is no positive, there is no negative. Everything serves to further, which is the great Chinese oracle, the I Ching tells us. There is no negative force out there set to do you harm. It is only you trying to teach you a lesson so that you can fulfill your destiny as God man, God woman. Hey, doorkeeper, that is through, how do we find out who we really are now and in past life? That is through deep meditation. That is through going to an oracle or a diviner. And they can reveal that to you. Now, there are different people on the planet that are teaching us to get out of this certain paradigm of thinking of the Hegelian dialectic. And we need to start to follow those people. They have introduced to us the Indian way of logic, which is called the Tetalama. And the Tetalama gives you 4 positions to think from. You know, you have your premise, and then your premise has the negative aspect to it. Like, for example, God is good, God is bad. And what it allows you to do is to postulate from 4 different perspectives on that paradigm or that idea, and not be tied to one idea. This opens the mind up to be more free thinking and not to be married to one perspective. Then you go into a step level, which is a higher way of thinking, which is the Kemetic tree of life, which tells you that there are no irreconcilable differences. There are no irreconcilable opposites in the world. Okay? But these are patterns of thinking that we have to start getting into. But we're so caught up in Hegelian dialectic, which teaches us what David Icke had brought to light: problem, reaction, solution. Problem, reaction, solution. Problem, the ruling elite creates the problem and makes us think that this problem is organic. Reaction, the public reacts to it. Solution, the ruling elite comes and says, well, I have a solution for you. All right? Problem, too much terrorist acts out there in the world. Reaction, public gets afraid. Mass bombings are going on. Solution, the ruling elite comes and says, well, what we need is more government laws in a police state that will prevent terrorist acts. So you give up your civil liberties, you give up your rights, and there you go. Problem, reaction, solution, the Hegelian dialectic. Instead of coming along and operating from the Tetalama or the Kemetic tree of life in terms of the paradigm of thought, and saying that there are no irreconcilable differences, that my enemy is really one with me, and therefore they cannot oppose me because I have spiritual power to where I can vibrationally shift to a different parallel reality where there is no conflict or idea of conflict. Because when you're operating on 3D, third dimensional reality, you're operating on duality. But when you go to a higher level, ascend to 5D, 5D now is devoid of time and space. There is no right, there is no wrong, there is only you. And that you cannot oppose itself. So you have no enemies. So let me greet the Magi's in the chat room. Mike Het-Heru, GK Sigma, Heru Nefer, Derek Joseph, Het-Heru, Suan, Namaste. Doorkeeper Het-Heru. All right. So I want you all to think about that. Think about this whole idea of what we call mind control. And it's just not about the government disseminating false information. This thing goes back to all the way starting in ancient times when we were taking off the space-time continuum that we should have been, because today, if we were progressing as we should have without interference in the space-time continuum, we would be populating the planets, the stars. But because the ruling elite, one of the objectives of the ruling elite was to retard the progress of the planet. so that they can have access and be privy to higher wisdom and knowledge, but use it for a corrupt purpose. They know about aliens and UFOs. That's not science fiction to them. They've made contact. They know about interdimensional spirits and beings. They've made contact, but they keep that wisdom and knowledge from us knowing that. Therefore, they can subjugate the masses of the planet, but they have a more diabolical purpose into doing all of this, which is why we have to now take it upon ourselves as a species, as a people, as one united planet, devoid of affiliations of being political or racist, political or religious. We have to understand that we all are one and we move together as one. And when that happens, we will vibrationally shift because we'll reach that tipping point, which is the requirement for changing reality. Read Vadim Zeland's Reality Transurfing, and you'll understand that the basis of manipulating reality will come from the collective. The Bible says if two or more agree, so shall it be. Well, we understand in reality manifestation, in the 100 monkey principle, when a certain group of people get together and they are of like mind, then there creates a vibration. And that vibration is the electromagnetic field of Nun, the god Nun. When you see the symbol of the three wavy lines, then that becomes the basis of the quantum soup. And what's in the quantum soup? Endless possibilities. Nothing exists as a fixed point in space and time. When you look upon that quantum soup with a belief system, it collapses into one of an infinite number of experiences that you can go through and experience. Do you follow me? So what I'm saying to you is I understand and appreciate those people who have done all this research into government conspiracies and government mind control. But what I'm trying to get you to do is start to take a very higher spiritual look upon things. Meaning, and I know it's difficult to look upon those who may have been unjust toward you and say, I love you and you are not my enemy. That does not mean that you seek justice. You should pursue justice against them. But you have to make sure that you're not acting emotionally, because there's a point where you can cross the line and it's not justice anymore, it's revenge. Be very careful about that, okay? Het-Heru door, well, balance will come from Ma'at. Ma'at is the divine aspect of God as the justice aspect, truth, balance. But you do, as a being in this matrix, you must work to instill balance and harmony, because what you think of, how you act, resonates and creates a reality. And if what you're thinking of on a constant basis and what your vibration is all about is negative, low-level thinking on a thinking set, then you're going to create a negative world that will have a negative impact upon you. This is why it is not what Christians believe falsely, that you should do good. That's the dumbest idea in the world. That's actually a very primitive, immature, childlike way of thinking, because most of those Christians are children in their minds. That's a given. You know you must do. You're born knowing you must do right. That is a given. God doesn't need to have to tell you that. God doesn't have to write that in some commandment. But it goes beyond that. It goes into the realm of fulfilling your destiny. That's what's important. What is the reason you were brought here? And making sure that you're on that path and you fulfill your role, because all of us are pieces in the machine. And without us, the machine cannot function properly. And when any one of us decides to go outside of that, outside of our function, then the machine cannot function properly. This is why we all have to abide by our role in life. Neter is trying to experience infinity. And the only way Neter can experience that, or Source can experience that, is with your help. This is why Neter needs you to fulfill your role to maintain the balance. So think about it. Because when you start to get back to understanding things on a fundamental level, which is that when we talk about mind control, when we talk about fulfilling our destiny, we're really talking about living a better quality of life. And not so much as people may fear, as though, well, spirituality is going to be all about a life of limitations, No, it's a life of freedom, because as a spiritual being, as a magi, you come into an understanding of your power and who you truly are. And when you do that, then you get access to the quantum soup, the realm of infinite possibilities, and you can create whatever reality you desire. There is no limitation, because you're an unlimited being having a limited experience in this third dimensional plane. So why not take measures to alleviate that and say, I'm tired of these limitations. I'm tired of this realm. I want out, hence out of the matrix. And this is possible within your lifetime. You don't have to go hardcore. You just have to understand certain core ideas and work toward them. And chief among those core ideas is your God man, God woman, your consciousness. You've always been and forever will be. And stop creating enemies. Stop engaging yourself in the Hegelian dialectic. Stop falling for problem, reaction, solution. I talked about in an earlier video how in the MCU with this whole Avengers Endgame movie, they're talking about Disney and Marvel are talking about, we want more diversity. No, you don't. You're liars. You're manipulators. You're coming out there and you're putting out propaganda, mind control through that movie, because you know that movie is poised to make over $2 billion, and you see it as an opportunity to embed subliminal mind control seduction. Because if you were really interested in diversity, you wouldn't have Brie Larson, a white woman, playing Captain America when the original Captain America was a black woman. What more exemplifies diversity than a black woman playing Captain Marvel, who originally was the character? So with that said, beloved, I'm going to end this broadcast, and I will take calls on the next broadcast. I think that will be better for us. So until my next video, this is Kasakma Keperu, son of Ma and Tehuti, my mother's beautiful goddess Het-Heru. Until my next call or broadcast, I should say, Amen Ra.